Hello, everyone. My name is Peter Lee. I'm one of the senior developer evangelists here at R3. So today is the second quarter five quick bit-size session or webinar we have. And primarily we're going to do a demo. Let's give a few more minutes for people to join. Right now we have quite a few already here. So yeah, so let's give a second. And feel free if you have any questions regarding the previous sessions or any quarter five related topic. So you can drop in the QA because I think the chat is disabled for the webinar. But last time we used chat quite a while. I answered, I think, 47 questions in the last sessions. Yeah. So actually, everybody can hear me, right? Raise the hand in the Zoom if you can hear me. Okay, cool. Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's all I need to know. You can see me, you can hear me, then we are good to go. So all right, so let's give another 3 minutes. So we start on the past 5. And actually, let me, how do I want to do a poll. So let me try to, I want to know how many people attended my first sessions. So let me see if the poll, oh yes, create new poll. Attended the previous webinar. Corda 5 bit side. Think yes, no. Okay. So save, launch. All right, I just launched a poll. So questions, how many attended the previous quarter 5 besides webinar? Okay. Okay, it's a 50-50. I would actually expect a little bit more to join the second session after attending the first one. I guess I'm the one to blame. Maybe I wasn't interesting enough. Anyway, so the people who are here today, you will make the judgment on whether you will attend my search sessions. All right, so let's give another minute and then we can start. And also, since almost 50% of you didn't attend my previous sessions, I'm gonna spend 10 minutes covered the high levels. So when I'm demoing, you know what I'm demoing, right? All right. Okay, 5 minutes past the clock. So, okay, let me close the poll. And let's begin. share my screen. Okay, can everybody see my screen? And do you see the QA panel on my screen, or you don't? Because I kind of want to keep the QA panel on the side so I can see the questions and then answer the question immediately. Well, in order to interact with me, someone need to actually say like drop the reply as the questions in the QA, so I will know. Okay, cool, perfect. So thank you, Garva? No, sorry, or Mr. Signal. Okay, thank you. So let's begin. So Corda 5 bit size part 2 demo time. However, as I mentioned, since 50% of you didn't attend my previous sessions, I'm gonna begin a quick recap or a very quick run through of what I presented to the public on my first sessions. And plus, the previous recording is also on YouTube. So don't worry, if you are interested to catching up, after finding today's demo is interesting, you can also look it up on YouTube. I think you can the URL is youtube.com/CordaBlockchain, which is our product. So Corda, this is a bit deja vu if you ever attend any sessions talking about Corda. So our software, we tend to believe they are the foundation for the digital economies. Corda is the blockchain for business. It's applicable to all industries, and our vision is to build a cross-industry ecosystem, a digital economy system with our software Corda. This is some of the benefits. I'm not gonna talking too much about it. Corda is a permission network that provides P2P communication on a need-to-know basis. So we are a permissioned blockchain, or you can call it as a private blockchain. And we are significantly different than the public blockchain. Next is the real topic of the previous session. The first webinars of the Corda 5 series is the high level introducing Corda 5 and the mentality or like the reason or how we are changing designing Corda 5 comparing to Corda 4, which is our current legacy platform. And with Corda 5, we are moving the platform towards the need of customers, which is high availabilities and horizontal scalabilities. So high availability meaning that the software need to have a high performance while the service is sustainable and is always available. And the horizontal scalability means once your software is proven to how would I say solid, your business use cases or your startup ideas, you need to have a software, or you need to have the capability to scale up. Because when you do the POC, it's probably 5 nodes, 10 nodes, but when you want to actually go to market, you're probably looking at 100 nodes, 200 nodes, or 1,000 nodes, or 10,000 nodes, depending on the scale of your business. And lastly is the boosted development experience, including development itself on the CorDapp side, plus deployment on the production side. So that's what we have in mind designing basically the new architecture of Corda 5. So what's new? So the new things that we introduce is a whole new architecture for the software, and we bring in Kafka cluster as a messenger broker, and it was Artemis. And the new architecture basically bring in 4 different concepts: the event-driven workers, virtual nodes, and new plus modular APIs, and then lastly is application networks. So for the event-driven workers, so basically obviously, originally, if you heard Corda before, you used Corda before, you know, at our fourth generation of Corda, everything is handled by the node. So the node is basically the blockchain engine or DLT engine that abstract away the complexity of trying to operating blockchain. But it's an aggregated service. You need to set up a physical node, you need to operate your node, you need to manage your node. But in Corda 5 times, all those processes are divided and separated to assign to different workers. And then these are what you are looking on the screen. And there are total 7 workers and actually 2 more to handle other services. And since we are using Kafka, Kubernetes, and the things that we, the new architectures, we are able to achieving horizontal scalabilities because of the functionality of Kubernetes. So whenever you are you run into performance issue, you can just so this is a Corda 4. So whenever you are running into performance issues with the new the next generation Corda, you can always just like scale up by introducing new workers. And then if you are not experiencing a lot of transaction at the moment, you can maybe put your cluster to idle. So that's the horizontal scalability part. Next is have availabilities, meaning if your service is down, the new replacement can immediately come in, all thanks to Kubernetes and Kafka. So that's basically the first concept. The second concept is virtual node. Similar to the reasoning of the event-driven workers, for the concept of virtual node, at the Corda 5 time, we get rid of the physical node, so-called like the core engine at the 4th generation. At the 5th generation, everything is virtual. So it's abstract idea combining all those workers and then put together as a virtual node. And yeah, so that's that. And next, we have the new plus modular APIs. So for this one, it's basically we are explaining or how that we are showing you what's behind the scene of what originally called a Corda 4 node, and then now we are showing it in front of your eyes to let you decide what you want to do with those different kind of surveys. Because originally Corda 4, everything is aggregated into a node. You don't need to worry about all these layers because you just don't care. You are using the aggregated engine anyway, right? Whether you use this service or not, it was given to you. But as Corda 5 time, every processes is run through the event-driven workers, meaning you can be very selective on what type of service you want to use. And this section, I was explaining the different layers of service that are basically labeled or named in the Corda 5 software. And lastly, is the application networks. So application networks, meaning that at Corda 4, again, compared to Corda 4 times, everything needs to be handled by basically a network level service, what we used to call a network manager. It can be a consortium or it can be a superpower entities to basically, whoever set up the network has the control of the network as the network operator. And the tools are like network bootstrapper or Cinnamon, which is again proprietary. But at Corda 5 times, everything is configurable during the installment. So we talk about because of now we are using virtual nodes. When you basically set up the virtual node, you will give an installment called the installer. And then you drop the installer into the virtual node. The virtual node will pick up all the network metadata immediately. So that's and this is like the step we talk about. So yeah, so that's basically summarized the 4 new concepts that coming from the Corda 5, the next generation Corda, right? And as I mentioned, it's actually exactly 10 minutes for the quick recap. So now let's jump into what we want to talk about today. So today is the demo time. I'm actually going to show you what does it look like to deploy a Corda 5 clusters, and plus how would you develop Corda 5 applications on your machines. But before that is again, it's back to PowerPoint time. But actually, before I begin today's technical sessions about all this, any questions on what I covered, the 4 big, like the new architecture and the 4 big concepts that are new to the Corda family? Okay, I see no questions in the QA. I guess we are good to go. All right. So I want to begin the session with a few prerequisites. So, right. So I want you to know what tools you would need to basically start working with Corda 5 when it's beta release. I think it's in March, and then the GA, meaning all functionalities will be published, is in May. So the first thing you would need is some knowledge about Kubernetes. Either is on a cloud environment, or as in the demo I will show, locally with a MiniCube. So that will be the first thing. So the usage of Kubernetes in Corda 5 is to maintain the availability process container across multiple servers. The second one is PostgreSQL. So this is the default database that's gonna do the persistence of the configuration and also the state. So both for Corda, the clusters, and the CorDapps. And the third one is basically the new architecture we brought in is Kafka. And that's basically handles the intercommunication between processes. And for today's demo, and also I would assume all of you will begin your test development with Corda 5 locally. You would need Docker and a service called MiniCube. So those are the infrastructure stack, meaning like those are the things, how would I say, they are physical. They are either they are softwares or they are tools that you need to install. Yeah, install. So those are the infrastructure stack. So next, like we want to talk about like I want to say the Helm package manager is sort of is a soft skill you need to acquire, or this is on the deployment side. You need this to actually set it up. So the previous one, so this is like the hardcore physical software you need, and then the Helm chart is basically the one that make it happen. So that's why I'm separating them to different sections. So what is Helm? So basically Helm is a package manager for Kubernetes. It supports templating so that the points of variabilities can overwritten at the install time. And when you learn about Helm, there are some terminologies you need to pick up. The chart, basically it's a collection of template configuration and default values. And today you will actually see that I'm using a pre-configured chart to install my Kafka clusters, Postgres, SQL, and Zookeepers. Repository is the hosted collection of version Helm chart. So basically you get the chart from the repository. And lastly is the release. So it's versioned install of a chart. So that's a little bit advanced, meaning you can handle your installment or your package to different line up to different release, sort of like a service for upgrade. And this link is for you to install the Helm CLI. So these two slides are basically your prerequisite to get your hands on for Corda 5, which unfortunately for the audience today, you can't do it right now. So all the sessions we are doing for in January and February, they're so-called teasers because our beta release is still not packaged yet. So the public beta release will be out, I think, towards the end of March. Is there any questions on the infrastructure stacks and the Helm package manager? All right. Okay, so this is a new concept I'm introducing. It's called the Corda Standard Development Environment. So in the Corda 4 times, right? If you're talking about developing a Corda, so I hope many of you had done before, you will download a template, either download a template or you download the samples from the GitHub repo, and you will start changing. The code a little bit to basically suit your business logic. But at the Corda 5 times, you still need that template, right? But based on what these two previous slide are showing, you will need a whole lot of infrastructure to set up or deploy your Corda 5 test environment. So we build you a sandbox called CSDE. So the CSDE is a prepared CorDapp project that you can use as a starting point to develop your own prototypes. So this is basically equals the template. It's also a sandbox where Corda 5 combined workers is included for all of your testings. So basically that's equals all the mock test network or the integration tasks that you are able to do at the Corda 4 times or the Corda 4 template. And lastly, it has the ability to assemble a mock Corda 5 network. This is basically equals the network bootstrapper that come with the Corda 4 template. So thinking about getting your hands on with Corda 5, you should now realize it basically they're a parallel track. On the left is a deployment. You need to put yourself in some study with a Kubernetes, Kafka, little bit Postgres, and learning about how they configure, how they connect, talking with each other, and all the Corda 5 concepts. So this is a deployment track. And on the other hand, if you want to just focusing on development, you can just use the sandbox, the CSDE to use the template to develop your CorDapp logic. So going forward, my team, the R3 developer relations team, will also providing tutorials and bootcamp for both tracks. And the CSDE will be basically a tool or a software that lives along with the life cycle of the Corda 5. So yes. Next, we have the applications, packaging, and installations. So this is another new concept, technical concept that come with the Corda 5. So at the Corda 4 times, so if you thinking about how to deploy your CorDapp to your node, so basically you write it in a template, you build it, and you get the binaries, you get a jar, you sign the jar, you drop into the physical node. Basically, it's a virtual machine. There's a folder called CorDapp. You drop the jar into the folder of the CorDapp, and then the node restart will pick it up. But I Corda 5 times. So how would you do is you write a code in the CSDE, you build the code into binaries. That's what you get called CPK, a Corda package. It's basically your application jar and a few libraries, like all the dependencies you need. And there's a CPK metadata, so like time, whatever. So that's your application package or CorDapp package, what we call CPK. And after you have a CPK, if you remember from the Corda 4 time, you have the workflow package, you have the contract package. So now basically meaning you have 2 packages. But you need both package to function as a CorDapp, right? So now you need to have somewhat a bundle. So what we call a CPB, a Corda packaging bundle. So as the CPB, so basically you take the multiple package that you build as a CPB, and it becomes a bundle. It's pretty intuitive. It's just we changed the last suffix of the phrase. So Corda package into Corda bundle, pretty straightforward and pretty intuitive. And after you have a bundle, that's basically is your business app, right? What you need to do next is something innovative at Corda 4 that you didn't do at the Corda 4 time. Is called changing them into a CPI, Corda package installer. Because if you remember, as I mentioned, a few like 10 minutes ago, all the virtual nodes, how would a virtual node know which network is gonna run into, or what type of functions the virtual node need to run? So the virtual node will get all the information from a thing called CPI, Corda package, CorDapp package installer, and that installer carries quite a lot of information. And as on the screen, it has, of course, it has the CBB in it, and it also has the certificate trust root, meaning which network it belongs to, the membership management information, meaning inside of the network, what's the membership status of that virtual node. Identity PKI, like the who it is, right? In my first sessions, the virtual nodes, they are all stateless. All the event-driven workers, they are stateless. They are no-brainers. They only know execute service that you pass along to them. So the CPI basically is where you carry all those informations and then you pass to the virtual node, and then you enlightened or how you basically give a life to the virtual node to do what you want the virtual node to do. You give the identity to the virtual node through the CPI, and we call that an installer. It's a self-contained deployment unit. It includes information about application and the network policies. Deploying applications, including joining a network, becomes simple. Because originally at Corda 4 time, if you want to join a network, you gotta do a lot of things. You gotta set up, you gotta first get a certificate from the network operator. You gotta get your node set up, and you need to get the network map in order to talk to people. And you need to, again, then drop the CorDapp into your virtual, into your physical node. And then you gotta make sure that the CorDapp is signed by your business network. Like all those things you don't need to do. You just need someone taking care of CPI for you. And then you can just take the CPI and then drop it to the virtual node. I see there are questions popping, so let me answer the question. First question, what are the contents of the CPK file? How will it be encrypted? So the content of the CPK is just your CorDapp. When you start coding, you write your state code, you write your contract code, you write your workflow code. It's just the Java code. And when you build it, it takes the dependency and then build it into the binary jar. So it's just that. Will it be encrypted? I actually think there's no data coming in and out. I don't think it's encrypted in somehow. It's just code. I mean, of course, it's encrypted when you build it, but I don't think it's crypto encrypted. Like, yeah, it's a class, it's a jar, it's a binary. Yeah. Yeah, no, but because when I see encrypted, I thinking about cipher suits, right? SHA-256, stuff like that. Okay, answer. Oh, I clicked the wrong button. Okay, so hold on, I answered this question. Next is anyone here in a different record in the background record? Sorry, you mean echoing? Or I might like maybe talking too loud. My bad. Should a package installed for every application developed? Should a package installed for every application developed? Okay, so let me see if I read your question correctly. So do you mean, is the package or the CPI giving to the virtual node is developed? The answer is yes, because the CPI is basically developed by you, by your developers, by your development team. It's basically your Corda 4 times CorDapp, but now it's just you are adding a lot of more metadata to your CorDapp. So that's why we now call it an installer. Does that answer your question? Okay, thank you. Will other database be supported besides the Postgres? Right now, I think it's still in development. So the default we are offering is Postgres, but at the Corda 4 times, we support most of the SQL database. Oh, okay. There another question just telling me there's no background noise. Thank you. Okay, so we are good with the packaging. So let me see. The next slide we have is demo time. And is it? Yeah, right. So before we go into the demo time, I want to give you the honest sort of resource I'm using. And again, today's topic has the Corda 5 and the Corda 4 comparison. I want to give you like the most straight up comparison. So Corda 4, let's talk about local deployment. Local deployment, I'm using a Docker. I allocated 12 GB of RAM and then 10 CPUs just for Docker. Well, I shouldn't say just for Docker. I mean, for Docker altogether. And inside of Docker, I'm running MiniCube to start my Kubernetes clusters. And with my MiniCube configurations, I'm giving 8 GB of RAM and 6 CPUs to run the MiniCube cluster. And next is I will install Kafka and PostgreSQL and onto the MiniCube Kubernetes. And lastly is the Corda 5 infrastructure deployment. And they will be 7 event-driven workers deployed. And after that, I can show you the APIs. So as a comparison, at Corda 4 time, Corda 4 for local deployment, you basically have the option to use the network bootstrapper or Cinnamon, but that one is proprietary. You need to pay for it. So that's another comparison. Is Corda 5 offers native deployment, but Corda 4 the deployment path is pretty rough. And for Corda 5 development, all of the Corda 5 development coding needs to happen inside the CSD, the Corda standard development environment, again, which is a sandbox plus template. The sandbox will give you all the testing capabilities, and the template will basically give you the skeleton code to begin with. And compared to Corda 4 times, if you're talking about development, you just use the template. And all the testing, so basically you don't need a sandbox to test Corda 4. So it's just everything is in the template. All right, demo time. And actually, I'm crossing my finger this will work, because as I mentioned, it's gonna use a lot of memories. So I'm gonna try to close as many as many applications as possible. And now I will begin the deployment for the Corda 5 clusters. Again, let me show my screen. Share screen, desktop 1. Okay, so let's begin with Docker. So, before the session, I already started MiniCube because it take time to start up, and then I shut it. But now let me basically reactivate it. And I will just go with a MiniCube start. So again, right, if you want to, no, actually you can't, you can't yet. So all of this I'm showing is the internal beta testing, right? So meaning, R3 employee will have a copy of it, but you don't have it yet. So you will have it towards in March. Our estimate is the end of March, but maybe we can release a little bit early. And trust me, everything takes time. So you would need a little bit patient working with Corda 5. Oh, and by the way, let me just also stop the video to save a little bit CPU. And maybe actually while it's building, so let me see what I can show you. So there are other ways, or there are a few channels you can learn about Corda 5. When I'm putting together my presentations, I was reading blogs. I'm getting my information from the developer.r3.com, the portal. And if you go to the blog and you select Corda, they are basically, we are writing blogs to to talk about Corda 5, Corda 4 from time to time. And we also have the Corda.net, and on Corda.net, they are explanations on CPK, CPB, CPI. Stuff like that. So okay, now we have it running. The MiniCube is start. So let me actually show you what we do next. So there are a few things we need to do. We need to change the environment to the MiniCube. So we will do that first. And I wrote a short script. I also gonna show you. I wrote a short script to make my life easier because I was going through all of this step many times. And at the end of the day, I was like so tired of typing all of this. So I wrote the script. So let me actually explain to you, right? So the first one is we want to set our Kubernetes to the MiniCube that we are using. And this one is we are deleting all the damaged images that we previously installed to the Docker registry. And next, we are loading the Corda 5 worker images into the MiniCube, into the MiniCube registries, because we need those to be stored and run to deploy our Corda 5 clusters. And next is I'm deleting the namespace to have a fresh start. And next step, I'm creating the namespace to basically have the playground to work with. The next one, the setting the context. So this is a helper, basically a helper step. So when I do the kubectl get pause, it knows I'm I'm automatically selected to use the Corda namespace. Next, I'm using the Helm chart, like ding ding. It's a callback, right? So the Helm chart is the package managers. We are using the chart from the CorDapp registry, from a registry that we develop to basically build Kafka, Postgres, and Zookeeper at one time. And the next one is I'm basically printing out the Postgres password because I want to do some testing before I deploy my Corda 5 workers. So I need to have a functional Postgres database in order to continue. That's why I do a little test. So let's see it in action. So I just gonna run shell script deploy Corda. So everything in that script, it was prerequisite. We need to have all of this done before we even deploy Corda 5 cluster. And now it looks like it's jamming. It's jamming up because normally you don't need that long to just delete the damaged image. Oh, okay, it's working. Okay. Loading Corda cluster workers. So while it runs, we are gonna go back to the screen again. So I want to show you where you can read about Corda 5 on documentation. But again, unfortunately, you don't have the access yet, so that's a little bit bummer. But everything will change in March. So we go to docs.rc.com. We select Corda. You will see that in the index, there's the Corda 5 beta 1 release. So this one, again, is an internal release, but the documentation is public. It's a little bit, doesn't make sense, but well, I mean, what can I say? It just work here. So if you look around, there are some tutorial, like for example, prerequisite for cluster deployment. You need a Corda CLI, kubectl, Helm, Docker, blah, blah, blah. And there are some network types, group policies, node tree deployments. And in the operating sections, you will see there's talk about the APIs, accessing the REST APIs. And then we have a nicely new page showing our Corda 5 APIs, node APIs, or you can call cluster APIs. And it's all here. So basically the knowledge is out. The software is still internal testing. But you can use the time to get familiar with Kafka, Kubernetes, etc. and Docker and MiniCube. So this is the API page. So let's go back to the, now it's really lagging. I can't even change, okay. It's loading the Corda cluster workers. So they are 10 workers, but the one that has service, there are 7 of them. The other ones are for setup. So yeah, it's loading the cluster worker cluster. And I want to bring up the activity monitors for you. It's taking a lot. Okay, there we go, loaded. So I'm on a 16 gigabyte machine, but my Docker right now is screaming for 19 gigabyte, right? This is never accurate. Okay, now the image is loaded. I think still waiting for another 2. Okay, recreate Corda namespace. Corda namespace is deleted first, and then we're gonna recreate another one. So the whole thing right now is lagging is because I'm actually streaming. Just think about it. I'm sharing my screen and all that. Typically it doesn't take this long. It takes like 2-3 minutes to complete. Okay, namespace Corda created, set context, install prerequisite Kafka Postgres Zookeeper. So it's running basically the Helm, installing the Helm chart. We'll use the Helm chart to install the prerequisite Kafka Postgres Zookeeper. And we can set up another window to watch. To watch its building. Cube CTL get pods dash watch. Running. So that means it's done. So we have Kafka, Postgres, Zookeeper all running, ready status 1. So now that means we can start deploy our Corda 5 event-driven workers. But before we do that, as I said, my script will output the Postgres database password. And the reason why is I want to test it before we actually use it. So I'm gonna use the dbeaver to go into my Postgres database and then connect to it. So we know it's actually running. And before we actually do that, we need to forward the port to 5432. So forwarding, and we're gonna get password. We're gonna re-edit the connections. We're gonna paste in the password. We're gonna click OK and hit enter. Okay, so this is bad. And I'm actually fortunate that I'm testing it, because right now, if I deploy my Corda 5 clusters, it won't work because my Postgres database is not successfully set up, handling connection to 5432, but is error out. So right now, there's only one option is for me to redeploy it again. But I think this is really due to the usage of the laptop. So we need to think away how we can present the deployment during streaming, or we just can't. Maybe we do the recording before and then post it to YouTube or something. But right now, if I want to solve the problem, I need to redeploy Corda. But I think we run all of the time. We are not going to do that, but just let me show you what will happen, right? So after, for example, when I'm successfully have my Kafka, Zookeeper, Postgres deployed, I will run the next Helm chart installed, which will deploy the workers that I was loaded. Right here, I was loading, right? I was loading the images. And we will start all of them. And after all of them will start, we will have the abilities to, as the documentation mentions, go to the Swagger API. So in the operating assets over here. So we will be able to get ourselves to the localhost 8888/Swagger. Then we will be able to create the MGM, create our virtual nodes, line up everything. So that will be basically the steps to do local deployment. I see there's the questions. What are the recommended specs for Corda 5 dev machines? Perfect question. And I want to give you the most honest answers. We don't know yet. Because right now we only know what works, but we haven't tried to stress it. We haven't tried to shrink it to the minimal resource needed for startup the clusters. And then let me stop my cube first. It's burning my laptop. MiniCube stop. And also again, so the MiniCube, when you start the MiniCube, you need to tell how many CPUs you need. By default, it's 2. With 2 CPU, you can do nothing, right? So I give 6, but I was just having a chat with the engineer. In the tutorial they gave it to internal R3 employee, they choose 6 for no reason because it's just a lucky number they like. So they haven't tried with 3 yet. They haven't tried with 4 yet. They haven't tried with 5 yet. But as I mentioned in my presentation, 10 CPUs for Docker, 12 GB of RAM for Docker, 6 CPUs and 8 GB of RAM for MiniCube will work. But the rest, we don't know. And if you have like the follow-up questions, like why Corda 5 is so resource intense? So the question, the answer is, you are not working with just a node anymore. You are working with the whole clusters. A cluster can host 1,000 nodes, can host 10,000 nodes. So pretty much you need a solid machine to handle the clusters. And for the workers, right now, everything is in MiniCube, is in one Kubernetes containers. In the future, in the real production deployment, all the workers can actually go to its individual containers to run, to basically scale. So to answer your questions, the honest one is we don't know yet. And I want to take the last 5 minutes to show you the next thing I want to show you, which is the CSD, because that thing, interestingly enough, you can actually use it, or you can actually play with it. So if you go to the docs again, you go to select Corda. In the index, you select Corda 5 Developer Preview 2. And inside of the Getting Started, you will see Corda standard deployment environment. And in this page, you will clone the repo, and then you're gonna follow the step, and then you can actually put yourself into some development with the CSD. And then, but again, for the CSD, you also need Docker. Let me show you. So I'm gonna open my IntelliJ, go away. So I'm gonna open up the CSD. Oh, another question. How many nodes can be present in one cluster in case of Corda 5 for 6 CPU unit? I haven't tried set up too many yet, but I only play with the 3. But to your first questions, how many nodes can be present in one cluster? So in one of the articles that our engineering team published on the portal or Medium or like Corda.net, so just all of our publication there that they're connected. So we can set up 1,000 Corda node in 30 seconds with one cluster, and it's just a normal laptop. So the performance, the scalabilities, the HA capabilities are like, you know, through the roof for Corda 5. But as a trade-off, yes, we need more resource than Corda 4. Corda 4 is really low. You need 2 GB of RAM. How to say it? 1 GB of RAM and 2 GB of disk space. That's it. And pretty much is like, for example, you can run it on most of the laptop. I was about to say iPad, but that would be a joke. So yeah. So what I'm showing on my screen is a CSD. So if you look at it, it's very similar with the Corda 4 template. And all of your code, your test will into here. That's the flow, and this is the test. And for the configurations, used to call, you know, the deploy node, build Gradle, like the deploy node task in the build Gradle. This is where you specify your network participant. Now it's called the devnet.json. And this is where you specify the partners. And in the task on the right side, if you click CSDE, there's your start Corda, stop Corda. So this is basically the sandboxing functionalities. You don't need worry about Kafka, Postgres, Kubernetes, and all those like extra stuff. This sandbox will have everything here, and you can just like by clicking that, and then it will set up the development environment for you. And of course, I'm not gonna click it or show it. It's gonna fry my laptop because I'm sharing my screen and Zoom calling. But yeah, this you can have a try. It's called Corda 5 Developer Preview 2 on our documentations. All right, that's conclude our session today. So let me actually close all of this and then bring back the presentations, because I want to do a quick summary. So at the beginning, we talk about what we covered in the first sessions, the high levels about Corda 5, primarily the benefit. And at the beginning of the sessions, we covered the infrastructure stacks that we are introducing for Corda 5. We talk about Helm chart. Basically, it's your best friend to deploy everything for your Corda 5 clusters. And we talk about the CSDE, which is a sandbox where you're gonna do all of your development. And we talk about packaging what's the difference between Corda 4 time? You have the package, bundle, and the installer. The installer gonna be a saver, or you can say your favorite when you're working with Corda 5, because that's just get rid of all the hassle for onboarding, offboarding a customer at the Corda 4 time to the network. And lastly, the demo, unfortunately, it doesn't run up, build up, but we talk about the comparison between Corda 5 local deployment and the Corda 4 local deployment and the resource that is basically is using. And lastly, where can we find the presentation slide? So the session will be recorded, updated to YouTube, and there will be a follow-up email sending all of the information to all the attendees. All right, before we are letting everyone go, I have a one last survey for everyone to help me to fill. So basically, this is how we collect feedbacks to basically choose the topic for the next sessions, or how we are basically doing. Well, you can see me now. Yeah, I'm back. I'm not a chat bot. No, not some open AI stuff. You got a like real Peter Lee here. Again, so I'm a senior developer evangelist here at R3. So thanks everyone for coming, and fill out the survey if you have any comments or feedback you want to give. And I hope to see you all at our next sessions. Bye.